Council to discuss the proposed fiscal year 25 budget. Committee members present, we have Committee Member Ballerin, Keegan, Adams, Farrell, and myself. We are also joined by our staff, our Research Council, Jake Easland, our Legislative Director, Brian Jimenez, our City Clerk, Shaniqua Jackson, our Junior Policy Analyst, Alyssa Kamara, our Deputy City Clerk, Demetra Brown, and then we are also joined by other council members, President Pro Tem Kelly Kimbrough, and with us this evening we have our Budget Director, Gideon Grande, and we have our Treasurer, Darius Shanafar. On today's agenda, we're going to discuss the debt report from the Treasurer's Office. We're also going to discuss the CPRB budget, proposed budget for this year, and then we're going, if we have time, go over some bonds. We also have a meeting tomorrow night where we'll go over any bonds we cannot get through tonight, as well as our budget intent memo and proposed changes to this year's budget. Do we have any public comment for this evening? Yeah, that's okay. And if you want to stay there, we can have them come to another desk so you don't have to move. Okay. That's okay. Thank you. Okay, first up, we'll bring Lukey Forbes. Okay, you will have 3 minutes to provide your public comment this evening, and when you start, just give your name and address for the record.
Is that her? How you doing? How you all doing? My name is Lukey Forbes. I live at 184 Sheridan Avenue, Apartment A, Albany, New York, 12210. And I'll keep this really short. I don't need to take the full 3 minutes. So I am the executive director of We Are Revolutionary. We're a nonprofit organization based out here in Albany, and we're dedicated towards addressing ACEs, adverse childhood experiences. Right now, Albany is on, according to the Child Opportunity Index, one of the worst places to raise a black child. Right now, the Opportunity Index is showing Albany about 23% opportunities for black children in Albany. I want to just really make sure that we are really paying attention to how the money is flowing through the city of Albany in reflections to that. Our campaigns that our young people are working on right now that I want to bring to this council's attention is making a pilot program for free transit within the city is something that they are working on. As well, we would like to bring attention to the Albany Free School, which is a building that we have been operating out of. I know previously there was a tax credit offer to the Albany Free School that has not been offered therefore now. We would like this council to revisit that tax credit to the Albany Free School so that it also can continue to be a service in the city of Albany with those same leniencies that was offered to the previous board in the past. And we also wanted to bring to light one more thing, so I'll stop there and I'll let my colleagues speak. Thank you. Last thing, I just want to double down and make sure that the CPRB is that the council understands that it is very necessary, that they're fully funded and that they have everything that they need. And if anything, our CPRB just needs a little bit more support. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Is it a question? Yeah, go ahead. Looks like we have a comment from Councilmember Keegan.
Mr. Forbes? Lukey? Could you come back up to the mic, please? I just want to sort of make a point of clarification on your public comment. You said that you're trying to pilot free transit for youth here in the city.
No, for everyone.
For everyone here in the city. So the city council would not have any impact on that. CDTA is actually a federal authority. And so any transit decisions would have to go through them. And in addition, any subsidized for transit would actually have to go through the county. And the reason why I'm making this point of clarification to you is that the county legislature is also going through its budget process right now, and it may behoove you to bring that comment and that suggestion to the county legislature, because we at the city level would not be able to impact transit funding. That's all I wanted to.
I appreciate you bringing that to my attention, and just for further clarity, I just would like for this city council to also be in support of said pilot program and echo these concerns to the county.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right. Our second speaker for this evening is Nazreen Mende.
Good evening. Hello, my name is Nazreen Mendy. I am the Director of Organizing at We Are Revolutionary. And like my colleague has shared, I do share the same feelings with the budget being directed towards certain avenues. I also would like the budget to also highlight some safety precautions also in place for our community. We do run a youth leadership program where we have about 30 kids who would love to have a space that they can come to that is essential to where they live at. We are expanding where we are using space in the Albany Free School and the Albany Damien Center. So just creating space where we could have an area to use to facilitate our program would be amazing. And that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. And our final comment for this evening is Marika Stubb.
Hi everybody, my name is Marika Stubbs. My address is 576 Western Avenue in Albany, New York. So my comments are around the initiatives that you guys, we would like you guys to support. The Fair Fee Transit specifically is an initiative that we are working on through We Are Revolutionary in our Youth Organizer program, and we would love to hear that the Common Council is in support of this resolution, being that Albany does have deadlines and quotas towards zero emissions, lowering their environmental impacts, and encouraging people to use public transit, and we believe that free transit across the board would do so. And again, working with the Albany Free Schools specifically by reinstating their tax credit will not only uplift the students by allowing the school to increase opportunities, but lower costs, especially overhead costs in the Albany South End, an area that is in dire need of support from the City Council further. And again, supporting the CPRB, continuing to fully fund their initiative as well as initiatives similar to the like would again encourage our cities to continue having a repairable and full rounded experience or relationship with the police and as well as the law enforcement in the area. Thank you.
Thank you. That is our last public comment for this evening. I just want to remind everyone today that our second public hearing on the budget is taking place this upcoming Monday, November 4th at 7 p.m. And that's our second and final public hearing on this year's budget. All right, with that, we are going to go into the debt report. Good evening, City Treasurer and our Budget Director. The floor is yours.
All right. I emailed you the debt report yesterday, which you have in front of them. It's fairly standard, similar to what we've provided in the past. The first page is really just a history of what we have borrowed over the last several years, and has a chart up top that is, at least in the short term, is going to be somewhat irrelevant because we don't have any more landfill debt, so we're not removing that from the other debt for the purpose of the debt policy that we have. Second page is debt issued and debt retired. Sometimes people find it a little bit misleading because in the center in 2022, you see the large spike in debt issued. That was from a bond issue that we did in 2020. The other years, we have done bond issuances, bond anticipation notes that we do short-term borrowing until we find an appropriate time, and we are more sure about exactly what the long-term borrowing needs are. Then we bond when hopefully the rates will be better next year or two, three, to issue actual debt. It doesn't mean we don't pay off the bands, that we have to pay some towards those bands every year, but it's not reflected in this chart. Below that, the pie chart shows where we are with debt service compared to our general fund expenses. According to our debt policy, our debt policy, it should be 10% of general fund expenditures. We are at 8% this past year. That really shows that we've had some pretty good debt management these last few years, paying down a lot of it, not issuing a lot. So we're in good shape in that respect. You can see the next page is the debt schedule. That's what we have for the bond payments going for the next 9 years. Again, $88 million in total bond payments is lower than we've had here, I think, in my time here. But that also does not mean that we don't have other debt on the horizon, as you can see below that, the bond anticipation notes that we issued this year. We have $49 million, almost $50 million in debt there. We're planning, at least at this point, to roll over that note into next year, along with whatever's authorized this year, and whatever of the previously authorized spending that has not been acted upon yet, has not been borrowed upon yet, but we'll have to cross that bridge when we come to it. If we may do more bond purchasing in March compared to bands if the rates really tumble. If they don't, then we'll try and project as best we can what the rates will be going forward to kind of inform our decision making on that. The good news is that we don't have to bond, I think not this year, and I think not next year, because of, actually it may even be 3 years, because they changed the rules during COVID to, normally a bond anticipation note is a 5-year term. Once the 5 years is up, you have to go out and bond the monies instead of ban them. During COVID, they extended that to 7 years instead of just 5. And most of our debt pre-20 is already either bonded or will be paid off this year. So going forward, maybe able to push off bonding if necessary going forward, because we don't want to get stuck in a bond that has a higher interest rate as we watch those interest rates go down, which I'm pretty sure they will be. That's where people think the market is going, but how much they'll go down, we don't know yet. So I think the last page 4 is debt ratios, overlapping indebtedness, and the bond rating information. It really is adding in the other overlapping indebtedness for citizens of the City of Albany, with counting in the county's indebtedness and the school district's indebtedness. Our bond rating has stated A+ with a stable outlook for several years now. Our finances are in good shape overall with respect to how the Controller's Office views it. Our biggest issue and why we're still in a moderate designation for fiscal stress is really because of our fund balance. We want to get our fund balance back up. Hopefully, we'll be able to do that in the next couple of years. We want to get that to over 10% for the unassigned fund balance and 20% for the total fund balance. I'd also included with you, with the documents that I emailed everybody, the list of the band calculations that's performed by our fiscal advisors. That just shows you how much we're, expected to pay off for next year when we reissue the ban, and how much we expect to have to put back out for banning or bonding. The other spreadsheets that we provided were essentially where we're at with spending the monies that we have on our 3 bond issuances from 2016, 18, and 22, I mean, and as well as the spreadsheet of the outstanding bans and also the outstanding monies that have not been acted upon at this point. So with that, are there any questions?
Yep. Councilmember Keegan.
I actually don't have a question specific to this, but I do want to ask because it came up during public comment. My understanding with the preschool coming back onto the tax rolls has to do with the fact that the preschool has now closed, so technically there's no nonprofit operating in that space, so it's back on the tax rolls, correct?
I don't know specifically, but yes, once a nonprofit is not being used for its purpose as being a nonprofit, then it has to go back on the tax rolls, and that determination is made by the assessor.
And it wouldn't matter if another nonprofit is occupying that space because the rental income would count as income on the property, correct? It would have to actually transfer to the new nonprofit entity.
Yes, and a new nonprofit would have to apply for the tax exemption.
Okay. I just wanted, I thought it was important to clarify that for the record.
So now we'll talk about speeding tickets?
Huh?
So now we'll talk about speeding tickets? No, just kidding.
No, I don't. But my follow-up question is really more geared towards our plan for the fund balance and how we anticipate, because we are issuing, in my opinion, not necessarily unqualified debt, but certainly an alarming amount of debt in order to keep up with the capital project plans, which I think are incredibly important for the city. But it does make me a little nervous, especially as we're anticipating the closure of the landfill, which from what we're calculating based on rates now is going to create a $10 million hole that we don't know how we're going to fill. So given all of that, you seem confident that we're going to be able to bring our fund balance back into an appropriate area. How do we think that that's actually going to come into the mix? Because typically we're paying into that fund balance with leftover funds every year. So how has that sort of tracked over the last couple of years in terms of what we've been able to transfer over from what we budgeted?
It's tracked stable the last few years. Excuse me. It hasn't changed dramatically one way or the other. I think as we come out of the last of the ARPA funding that is flowing through the city coffers right now, that's one part of it, I think, that may end up having an effect. The other is, quite frankly, I don't know how the speeding cameras this year, if they might provide a boost. That was unanticipated revenue that might help for this year. I think going forward, I don't know if Gideon, you have anything to add on that?
Yeah, I think that, we sort of talked about that this other night with the landfill is, we're going to have to look at multiple things, and, there's not going to be one specific item that closes I'm not sure it's 10 million on the landfill, but a significant 7-figure gap there. And we will provide the council and the mayor with, choices to make as we always do every year to ensure that we have structurally balanced operations.
Do we know specifically, for example, for fiscal year 2024, what we didn't spend that's now going into the general fund balance for this year? Did we underspend?
I don't know if there's any large number items, big items that fall into that. We really don't know until we get towards the end of the year.
Okay.
So that's, hopefully there's some. I think one spot that always is kind of helpful is debt reserve. So if we have leftover monies from bonds that are not going to be expended, then you can roll that into debt reserve, and you can use that to pay the debt costs every year, and that drops what we actually pay, what we actually have budgeted for debt during the year. So those are some of the ways you can kind of get around it. I don't know what we're projecting as far as where we are with salaries and benefits, essentially, because that's where 3/4 of the city budget is really for labor in the city. So those are where the savings you'll find, and they usually come from, unfilled vacancies, unfilled positions, and any cost and benefits that result from that.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Farrell?
Thank you so much. I have two quick questions. One of them, and you can answer this one second, if you wouldn't mind just doing like a quick primer for anybody that might actually be paying attention to this on bans and bonds, just because it is
Sure.
confusing, and I don't know, like I always feel like when we discuss the debt report, if anybody is actually listening, they should have an opportunity to listen. And then my other question is, any future bonds for like a transfer station, things like that, that would not be carved out, correct? That would go into the debt service percentages, just because I'm assuming that it's not that same concept of the landfill brought in revenue, so it was purposely carved out. That any future garbage thing, whatever it may be, would likely not be bringing in any revenue.
Well, I don't know about that. I think if we have a future garbage thing, it's very possible that we could be taking in refuse for a fee from other municipalities. We still take in a lot from other municipalities, so I don't know if those are the plans, but it's still possible. And if that is occurring, then for the purposes of the debt policy here, then yeah, I would think that it should be not counted towards that 10% figure.
Okay.
But I think that's
So it's yet to be
it's open
seen,
question.
but potentially could go one way or the other. Okay.
Well, and I'd also like to note the policy you're referring to is a locally imposed policy, not the state one. So the council could decide to amend that policy at any given time that it desires.
And I'd also point out, as I pointed out oftentimes in the past, that every single bond authorization that is approved by the council meets the debt policy and allows us to go over the 10%. By definition, because it's passed by 2/3, and you need 2/3 to say it's okay to go above the 10%. That being said, certainly we're all trying to keep it within the parameters of that.
It's definitely our preference to stay within it.
Sure. Yeah.
I'm just going to follow up quickly on what you just stated, Gideon. So is there any state threshold or federal standard?
Yes, there's a state constitutional debt limit placed on every single municipality in the state by the state constitution. It's 7% of the last 5 years of full equalized value of property. So ours is currently about $341 million. And according to Darius's report, we have 77 million outstanding. So we're like $250 million below our constitutional debt limit.
That's the borrowing, that does not include the interest.
Thank you.
So as for bans and bonds, the analogy I always like to give is that you think of bans as kind of a credit card, and you think of bonds as kind of mortgage debt. So once you take out the bonds, you're stuck with it. You are stuck with the interest rate unless you have bonds that are callable early, and you're able to kind of, mortgage that out over a set term of years and have set payments over that term of years. The bans are 1 year, essentially it's a 1 year credit card, and you can get a better interest rate often than on bonds, but you do have to pay off a little bit at the end of every year after the first year of banning the debt, the bond authorizations. So you can keep rolling those over for up to 5 years. Well, it's back to 5 years. It was up to 7 years, but now it's back to 5 years. And that can allow you to manage the debt. And one reason why it's a good tool for us, especially when you start initially on doing the capital projects that you approve, is that you don't always know how much the projects are going to cost. And you also don't know if you run into problems and you choose not to do the project, or the project turns out you might find funding from some other sources or something like that. So there, then you've only bonded for, you only borrowed on the ban for a portion of that money. Whereas if you bonded it all out from the beginning, you'd be stuck with paying for the whole thing, and then you still have to pay the interest going down the line. Even if you don't use that money and you claw it back to the debt reserve and pay off the debt, you're still paying interest on that money going forward.
Thank you so much for that. I appreciate it.
That made sense?
Councilmember Ballerin.
Thank you, Sheriff. And thank you guys for being here with us. Landfill. Do we have a close date of when the landfill is going to close?
I believe Deputy Commissioner Gablehouse the other night testified to sometime in early 2027.
So at the end of 2026, basically January 1st, 2027. So effective January 1st, 2027, we're not just going to have to pay for our trash to go somewhere, but we're also going to lose all that revenue. Do we have a plan yet? Because 2027 is 2 years away. I mean, do we have a plan? Are you aware of a plan that we've got on this?
Well, as far as the plan to dispose of the trash goes, I believe DGS has put out an RFP. I believe those RFP responses have returned recently, and the department is in the process of reviewing those proposals. You know, it's probably likely going to be some form of public-private partnership over there, and we hope that we continue to, we're continue to dispose of the trash and pick up the trash as needed and as the residents expect. Fiscally, I think, again, we do have a couple years to figure this out, and we are searching for new revenues from the state. Obviously, this was the first year we received an increase in AIM from the state in, I think it was 16 years. And, continuing to increase not just current revenues, but new sources of revenues, like the cameras, like cannabis, and ensuring that, we don't have to raise that much in property tax or make cuts to other programs in that magnitude.
Do we have an idea of how much it's going to cost for us to dispose of our waste?
I believe, as the other night, we're probably looking at about $3 million in additional expense.
So it is close to a $10 million hole, because $3 million in additional expense and between $6 to $7 million in lost revenue. So it is. How much is the lost revenue? Do I have that number wrong?
Yeah, approximately 3.
So still $6 million. $6 million hole is a heavy hole. And those cameras are, whether you like them or not, financially, they may be giving us a little boost economically, but I mean, I don't think, I am worried about that. I think I've been saying that for some time. I'm worried about the landfill closure, and I'm worried that we're not seeing it as much as an urgency, or at least we're not talking about it enough as the urgency, because that's something that affects all of our tenants, and I shouldn't say tenants, all of our residents, I'm sorry. It's going to affect all of our tenants too. If we start raising trash fees, you're going to see raises in everybody else's expenses. So I hope we're going to have more of an open conversation about that. And I apologize, I missed the DGS conversation, so I'm not sure if this was discussed at that. Okay, so I apologize, I missed that conversation. So my second question really has to do with those cameras. I think I questioned you about us meeting those numbers, and now we've got reports that 1,200 people got hit with tickets in just the first 10 days. Now, we may hit those numbers, we may hit more than those numbers based on where we currently are. But something that actually a resident asked me, and they weren't big fans of the cameras, but they did have an issue with the fact that someone that goes 31 miles gets the same fee as someone that goes 65 miles. Is there anything that we can do to make it so that if you go, beyond 50 miles, the fee gets tripled, or, if you go beyond, 40 miles, something like that.
Yeah, I mean, not currently with, the authorization we have from the state. It is $50 per violation and then a $25 late fee for late payments. But obviously, the state legislative session will be beginning shortly, and I would say that maybe we should be looking at both escalators for things you're talking about and potentially repeat offender escalators. I mean, that's, two changes that seem potentially reasonable.
Okay. And then my $25 fee, who gets that? The late fee? Do we get that? Is this
100% is collected by the city.
Okay, I'll take that. Okay. Thank you.
Councilmember Adams.
Good evening. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us. Two quick questions, really more clarification. In the presentation that you provided us, it speaks about the best practice of the unassigned fund balance and how it should be at a 10% of our expenses, or roughly at the 22.1. And just trying to get clarification. So with that being the situation, how does that actually affect us and our ability moving forward in the future with this rating?
The rating or the actual dollars?
The actual balance, but does the rating also play a role? Because just trying to get clarification, because up top it says the physical stress score is the status of our unedited fund balance. So just trying to get an understanding as to
Sure.
how
Yeah.
that translates to practice.
The fiscal stress score is something that's issued by the Comptroller's Office every year for those municipalities who actually send in their finances, and believe it or not, there are several in the state that don't. And that's just it's kind of a guidepost of that the controller puts out to say, hey, you should look at this, you should see make sure you're doing okay, make sure you're checking all the boxes. But the fiscal stress score is the largest component of the score is the fund balance. And so when ours is below 10% and below 10% consistently, as it has been for the last few, actually I think my entire time here, it counts against your score, and it puts you in moderate stress as far as the controller is concerned. What we'd be concerned about is if that's affecting our bond rating and if that's affecting how the markets view us. And thus far, it really hasn't, and nor should it, because we're in very good fiscal shape. Otherwise, we score very high in the other components of the fiscal stress score, including debt management and other components in there. So we would like to, I think with a higher fund balance that we have at the city, I think it would tend towards increasing our bond rating, hopefully back from like an 8+ with a stable outlook to a AA-, which is where we were when I first started. And that would save us a few basis points off our bond issuances. It might get a slightly more favorable interest rate, but it really, none of them have a direct correlation with anything else, but it's just kind of in the big soup of how you look at the fiscal situation of the city.
Okay, thank you. Also, just to get clarification, as another statement that was written here, it reads, the city can expect the annual debt service payments to increase by roughly 11.8 million in addition to the schedule above, beginning in 2026. It says, that being said, there are many decisions to be made before we can provide an accurate figure once the bond resolutions are passed. Can you just kind of elaborate as to what some of those decisions that we're going to be happy to look at?
Yeah, so the number's in there if we just decide to bond out everything that we have outstanding and everything that the council is expected to put forth for borrowing. The borrowing decisions are still, they're separate from whether or not you authorize a bond resolution. That depends on the status of the project. It could depend on whether or not we want to do the project at all, whether the administration wants to do that project at all, and they could decide to pull it. It depends on, you know, if the project starts later, we don't borrow until later. So that is a kind of a guidepost for like the, I don't want to call it the worst case scenario, but if everything just came on our heads at once, that's what it would be. We don't expect that to be the case. It has not been the case, certainly not for the last several years. I think the administration has gotten a lot better and more cognizant and more really being cognizant of the fact that we shouldn't be borrowing money if we're not ready to expend it with the bonds. And just because, and also where we don't have to borrow the whole chunk that's authorized for a particular project. We can parse that out over several years as well. So when you're able to do that, you're able to push off the borrowing decisions down the road on how you actually finance it and how much you actually finance it. And as I said before, when you ban in the initial years of the bond authorization, the borrowing, that provides the administration an opportunity to find out what is not going to be expended and what, you know, again, what you don't have to borrow because the project, you know, the trucks cost less or the project costs less or, you know, materials for things went down.
Thank you for that clarification. Turn it back over to Chair.
All right, a couple questions. Our bond rating of A+ compared to similar peers within the state of New York, do you know how we fare?
Pretty similarly, in my understanding. Yeah, I think there's a lot of the municipalities have had some level of fiscal, you know, the finances of all cities have been, you know, stressed, I think, even if it's not officially designated as stress and stress score, but they've been stressed for many years. So I don't think we're out of the ordinary one way or the other.
Okay, thank you. And as part of our agenda this evening and tomorrow, we are going to go over this stack of bonds. And obviously we have a presentation from the CPRB coming up, but is there any high-level overview you'd like to share while we have you before we do our deep dive?
No. You know, I think the high-level overview is oftentimes I think we focus, and certainly certain members of the council have focused on, you know, the actual amount that's approved for borrowing. I don't think that's necessarily the right way to look at it. I think you have to choose the projects that you want to see done. And then it's our job to work that in with the existing policies that we have to see what we can do to make that happen from a financial standpoint. I think there is a lot of, we have a lot of room for borrowing because of prior debt management, and that's a good thing. But we also have a lot of expensive projects that are on the horizon here, and that is something that I feel confident that we can manage, you know, going forward to not really increase the debt burden more than we already have. But it's also something that we have to be cognizant of down the line. So I think if it really comes down to whether or not the council thinks these projects are worth doing. And that's the most important thing, I think, for you to focus on.
Thank you. Any other questions this evening? All right. Thank you very much for joining us. All right, we're going to transition to the CPRB presentation. You can join us here up at the front.
Need another chair?
Good evening, Chair Vives. Good evening, Dr. Hardin. Thank you for joining us. And I know that we had to reschedule this, but happy that we can have the time with you this evening as we go through the budget process. And so with that, I know you prepared a presentation for us, so I'll say no more, and I'll let you take it from here.
Thank you. Is the PowerPoint presentation being... Oh, okay, perfect. Well, while we wait for the presentation to be uploaded, I just want to say thank you to the committee members and to the members of the Common Council that are here in attendance this evening. Thank you, Judy. Thank you to the members of the public who are also here with us. As you know, my name is Nairobi Vives. I am the chair of the Albany Community Police Review Board. I am joined by our vice chair, Dr. Danelia Hardin. And I would also like to acknowledge our board member, Antoinette Santos, our independent counsel, Kevin Canizero, and the Albany Law GLC staff member, Chell Miller, who are here in attendance with us tonight. Moving on. All right, that worked. So by now, all of you likely know our mission, know who we are. For the members of the public who are not familiar with us, we are members of the Community Police Review Board, a civilian-led oversight agency. The CPRB was created by the City of Albany in November 2000 to improve the relationship between the Albany Police Department and the diverse communities that they serve. We're community residents volunteering to do this important work. This is not our full-time job. The board seeks to help foster trust in law enforcement by ensuring members of the Albany Police Department are appropriately held accountable by their standards, policies, and laws. We're tasked to do so. As you can see, our core functions, we conduct independent investigations into incidents of possible misconduct with or without a complaint. We review completed investigations by the APD Office of Professional Standards. We work with the Chief of Police on adopting a discipline matrix. We review and revise police policies to ensure they are clear and comprehensible. And we identify outdated systemic trends and themes and provide recommendations to the mayor, Common Council, and the police chief to continue improving the quality of policing and strengthen public safety by elevating the performance of the department. An objective oversight process merely provides evidence-based analyses such that no officer could or would be punished for performing their duties as expected by the chief and as required by law. So as you can see, at our full capacity, we do have 9 board members, 4 appointed by the mayor, 5 appointed by the Common Council. We are currently operating with 8 board members. Like I said, you probably know us. We have said goodbye to a few people and welcomed some new faces. Among them, myself, Nairobi Vives, the chair, Dr. Hardin, vice chair, our secretary, Paul Collins Hackett, or Batman, as he's affectionately known, Reverend Dr. Victor Collier, John Lewandowski, Victor Person, Antoinette Santos, and our newest member appointed by the Common Council, Milton Arroyo. Within the last year, we have said goodbye to mayoral appointee Kevin Canizero, who's changed roles with our board, Common Council appointee Matthew Ingram, and like I said, Matthew Ingram's replacement was Milton Arroyo, who was recently reappointed for a full term of 3 years. A few board members' terms will expire in the near future or have already expired, including Dr. Hardin, John Lewandowski, and Reverend Dr. Victor Collier. The Common Council is in the process of making another appointment to the board. The mayor's office has indicated that they are in conversations with potential candidates for future appointments, and we look forward to working with the Common Council and the mayor's office to ensure that the board is able to operate at full capacity without necessary appointments. We risk not having a quorum of at least 5 present at any given time to conduct CPRB business.
Thank you, Chair Vives. I'm just going to switch this. Whoops. Here we have a community complaint snapshot we wanted to share with you all this evening. For the last couple of years, we've been working toward integrating the tools needed to enact the mandate per Local Law J, amended as of 2020. Those you will have seen reflected here that our chair shared the overview of our core functions within the next slide here. Thank you. Our chair mentioned that our primary focus is to review and investigate complaints of alleged misconduct by officers of the APD through collaboration of APD Office of Professional Standards, known as OPS, and independent investigators and independent monitors. We wanted to share to you to date, as of October 28, 2024, just to give you a sense of our progress, that we've reviewed 52 complaints. We have 52 complaints, pending investigation through OPS, 32 complaints under CPRB monitor and board review, 5 complaints under CPRB independent investigation, 49 complaints reviewed in year-to-date of 2024, 32 complaints reviewed and recommended findings of and discipline in 2024, and 1 complaint voted to be independently investigated this year. Next slide, please. Got it? Okay. I went the wrong way. Try that again. Help me out, Chair. Okay. Thank you. Our complaints over time, we've received 1,000 community complaints for over the 25 years that the CPRB has been operating. As you can see, the number of complaints received yearly has increased since 2020. This isn't an anomaly, nor should it be considered a bad thing. When a reform process or an agency like ours began to expand its exposure and do the work assigned to us, the numbers will naturally rise. Because people are slowly becoming aware of this accountability channel and the results from increased visibility, public outreach, and growing community trust in the CPRB. As we continue developing and evolving, this number will help indicate and help us to identify issues in policing practices that need to be adjusted. So we'll keep monitoring this as a base mark for what's happening in public safety, and whether our collective efforts are bridging the gap between community and law enforcement practices. We continue to grow, strengthen our practices, and I'm proud to share some of the CPRB's accomplishments this year. We have had many, but we'll just highlight a few tonight. As you know, we submitted the required Albany Police Department discipline matrix, which was developed in collaboration with other stakeholders, including the police chief, and if you recall, conducted in the public, encouraging civic engagement and centering the community voice. We also developed policy recommendations tracker that's housed on the CPRB website. This monitors our policy recommendations to APD, their responses in service of increased transparency, public awareness, and increased engagement. We received and responded to 49 complaints this year. That process included reviewing and offering recommended findings concerning 32 complaints and 1 independent investigation. We also help foster public trust and awareness and shared knowledge of Albany's efforts to support police oversight by participating in panels and workshops and tabling in the community, which we continue to do on an ongoing basis. Most notably, the chair and I had the opportunity for the first time to present at NACO, which is the National Association of Civilian Oversight of Law Enforcement. We received an overwhelming review of support from many different states who have continued to reach out to us to support their initiatives and oversight. We proposed policy revisions informed by community input and data analysis of complaints and investigations that adhere to current community expectations and 21st century policing standards. Additionally, we've maintained community partnerships and with advisory consultants for board efficacy, professional development, and strategic planning. We've integrated technology platforms to modernize case management and access to confidential documents and evidence. We've engaged and continue to partner with the Independent Legal Counsel to address conflict of interest with Corporation Counsel and barriers to investigations. Lastly, at least for this evening, which we wanted to share, is we amended the CPRB bylaws and rules, procedures to align with our authority under Local Law J. We also want to highlight some goals for you for 2025. As we move forward, we have quite the wish list to accomplish, most notably maintaining police oversight in Albany, which will rely on completing the transition to the city with internal support, staff, and administration. This is an absolute priority for reasons we've shared and continue to discuss. We're making progress by working in partnership with many people, some of whom which are in this room. So thank you. And there's still more to do, but separate but related to the transition, we intend to continue developing and facilitating approaches to ensure the board's responsiveness to community needs, expectations, per the language of Local Law J. In collaboration with APD, we hope to create and use a robust mediation program that reinforces the collective commitment, ours included, to improving the relationship between APD and our community members. The board will continue to identify community engagement opportunities, especially in connection with APD policy review and improvement recommendations, and continue centering the voice of the community we serve by bridging the gap between how communities hope to be policed and how police calls for service meet those hopes and expectations as a cornerstone for improving the relationship and building trust in police authority and legitimacy. Of course, we'll continue our primary work for effective and robust police oversight for the City of Albany by ensuring objective, thorough, and timely investigation. Chair Vivas.
Thank you, Dr. Harden. So given what we've shared to this point, we're pleased to deliver the CPRB's proposed fiscal year 2025 budget and our request for $804,000. That is the same number as last year. So I'd like to note that we do intend to continue doing big things while settling into our new city space and working on the same budget as last year. No change from fiscal year 2024. However, I do want to note that we have previously come before you and presented asking for full funding. That number exceeds $804,000. That hasn't changed. However, while we're in this transition period, we are able to sustain our functions at the same level as last year. Unfortunately, the mayor's office continues to try to underfund the very critical work that we do as volunteers. We're required to do by law, and more importantly, as requested by the people of Albany. I'll come to the city's proposal in just a minute, but let me tell you how we intend to appropriate our funding. I mentioned no changes in the bottom line amount, but what does shift is the line items we anticipate spending towards. So of the requested $804,000, $348,000 is earmarked for personnel services, $93,016 in employee benefits, $323,985 in contractual expenditures, and $39,000 in equipment. Integrating into the city system will provide the CPRB with shared services and infrastructure support, such as IT and HR support, accounting, and audit. And physical office and storage space while moving away from third-party administration. I'll remind all of you and share with new listeners that the CPRB's budget isn't entirely arbitrary. The city's annual proposed budget for this board is a legal requirement in Local Law J to include a separate appropriation to fund the CPRB in an amount equivalent to no less than 1% of the total proposed budget for APD. Doing the math, The CPRB's proposed fiscal year 2025 budget of $804,000 is equivalent to 1.16% of the total appropriation for APD in the city's proposed fiscal year 2025 budget. Back to what the city and what the mayor's office is doing again this year, the proposed fiscal year 2025 budget from the mayor's office allocates only $683.10 to the CPRB, a decrease of 15% from fiscal year 2024. And by the way, each year we've come to you, the mayor's office has tried to lowball the CPRB's effort. Every year we try and point out the impact and the promise of the city's leaders made to the people. The amount that the mayor proposes equals 0.99% of the total appropriation for APD, falling short of the statutorily required amount. And you can reference section 42-334F of the city code to verify that, a point that we've had to illustrate each year. Apart from that, the mayor's proposed budget for the CPRB is insufficient to sustain the operations of the board. We'd highlighted in the years past that coming into the city structure and relying on shared services would allow us to do more with less. The CPRB's 2025 budget proposal accounts for a 68% decrease in anticipated expenses for contracted services in 2025, which is expected to be about $258,584.50, compared to utilizing the entire $804,000 budget for contracted services in 2024. A detailed breakdown of the anticipated contracted expenses is included in the CPRB budget narrative that you all received in Appendix A, Figure 2. Regarding our partnerships with independent experts, we are slowly building capacity and will continue leveraging independent investigators, monitors, and mediators until in-house staff are hired and ready to take on complaints. We anticipate continued partnership with advisory consultants to help and support the board's training efforts, strategic planning, and other administrative needs. Our commitment to accessibility will mean ensuring translation and interpretation services are available. And as for independent counsel in litigation, we must maintain independent counsel for various matters, including subpoena services, legal databases, etc. And since other alternatives are all subject to conflict of interest, we've discussed with you all previously as well. Our case management system will need funding to maintain the case management database. And finally, our commitment to the community is paramount to our existence. So funding and supporting outreach and public engagement is hopefully self-explanatory and hugely critical. As we build our internal capacity and attain the ability to hire and train staff in the new year, we expect to reduce our reliance on contracted services even further and possibly reduce our budgetary asks. Moving on to our proposed staffing for the board. The board has historically only had one full-time staff equivalent devoted to its day-to-day operations for nearly 25 years. As you all know, we currently have 0 full-time staff. We have the help of the law school, which has been critical in making sure that we haven't, missed a beat since our previous program director, Michelle Andre, has moved on to another opportunity. But staffing is critically important to us. Our CPRB's, our proposed budget requests the following positions for fiscal year 2025 as a part of the transition: 1 program director, 1 senior investigator, 1 confidential secretary, and 1 part-time community engagement specialist, moving us from 1 full-time employee to 4 full-time and 1 part-time. This request is based on the increased demand for CPRB services, the need to meet its voter-initiated mandate, and national comparators for civilian oversight, staffing based on police department size. We acknowledge that transitioning from 1 full-time employee plus contractors to 4 full-time positions represents a significant change for the organization. This increase, while it might seem to be a jump, is necessary to address the current staffing limitations, the backlog of complaints, and the escalating number of complaints. Additionally, we are concerned that the status quo fails to tackle the longstanding turnover issues among board members and previous coordinators and program managers, many of whom have left the CPRB due to non-competitive salaries and burnout. These additional positions will help us fully implement Local Law J by developing infrastructure informed by our experience in Albany and researching and reviewing effective community oversight models in other locations. The proposed fiscal year 2025 budget accomplishes this without dramatically increasing the CPRB's total budget from last year, despite several one-time costs associated with moving into the city. The transition from a contract model to a permanent staff positions will improve the services offered by the CPRB and establish a sustainable and cost-effective model for the board's long-term staffing and operational needs. This proposal also enables the City of Albany to create new jobs for Albany residents. It's imperative, and we offer competitive salaries and packages that encourage relocation if needed, as well as adequate support for individuals in these key positions to attract and retain experienced and skilled practitioners. The 4 full-time positions, 1 part-time position, and corresponding salaries in Appendix A, Figures 5 and 6 of the CPRB's budget narrative are based on the City of Albany non-union pay grade assignments. For more information on salaries, Figures 8, 9, and 10, also in Appendix A, provide salary comparisons within the City of Albany and between civilian police oversight agencies and similarly positioned cities. We have also tried to be mindful of the economic pressures compounded by the reality that the extraordinary federal aid from several COVID recovery acts has come to an end, which will result in a reduction of available resources compared to 2024. However, the CPRB has not benefited from COVID Recovery Act, and our critical need for additional resources remains. We also acknowledge that it is crucial we continue to seek cost-saving measures. Among them, CPRB integration into the City of Albany under the Common Council will eliminate $236,900 in the installment fee for Albany Law School for administrative services. Although we completely plan to continue that long-standing relationship, it won't be in the same vein that it was before as our contracted administrative agency. It will also eliminate fees and services expense line of $2,000 for email and online presence by utilizing the city resources, and it will enable the CPRB to access additional resources for handling high-profile cases that the board has voted to investigate independently. Our proposal reduces reliance on third-party contracts by adding staff investigators to monitor and conduct investigations. Our proposal of $258,584.50 for contracted services accounts for a 68% decrease in anticipated expenses for contracted services in 2025 compared to utilizing the entire $804,000 budget for contracted services in 2024. I'll turn it back over to Dr. Harden.
Thank you, Chair. We want to reiterate the benefits to the community. Okay, no problem. Our requested funding will benefit the Albany community in a multitude of ways. For a start, the work of the CPRB improves the relationship between APD and the public by enhancing the police accountability, helping people understand the law, their rights, and the legal parameters of law enforcement, while helping re-legitimize policing among Albany's most disenfranchised and marginalized community. Robust and effective oversight provides clear and consistent expectations among the public and APD personnel about the consequences of misconduct. Civilian oversight also addresses systemic, policy, and procedural deficiencies in the police department, all of which are areas of potential exposure to liability. A fully resourced CPRB will allow staff to efficiently complete their duties and conduct community outreach instead of relying on a volunteer board and contracted support. A practical, well-staffed oversight office will build capacity to restore eroded trust and systemically identify policies and procedures that may cause avoidable harm. As an additional benefit to the community, our proposal includes job creation of good, meaningful jobs for residents of the city of Albany. Chair Vives.
Thank you, Dr. Harden. In conclusion, without proper funding, the CPRB will not be able to fulfill its mandate, especially without the assistance of consultants and day-to-day support from Albany Law School moving forward. Our communities have called for sustained police oversight, transparency, and accountability. Now, the City of Albany can ensure that the CPRB, an essential resource for community oversight of police misconduct, is sufficiently funded and resourced. In conclusion, the City of Albany Community Police Review Board respectfully requests the allocation of $804,000 for fiscal year 2025 to effectively fulfill our mandate and enhance the oversight of the Albany Police Department. This budget will enable us to hire essential staff, address the increasing demand for our services, and ensure sustainable, quality, robust, and transparent police oversight. The proposed budget includes necessary and reasonable costs for personnel, benefits, contractual services, and equipment. It reflects our commitment to integrating into the city system to maximize efficiency and reduce reliance on third-party administration. This transition will lead to cost savings and improve our ability to provide objective and thorough investigations, fostering greater accountability and trust within the community. We have outlined several cost-saving measures, such as bringing investigative authority and responsibility in-house and reducing reliance on contracted services, which will further enhance the efficacy and sustainability of the CPRB. By investing in these positions and resources, the City of Albany will benefit from improved police accountability, stronger community police relations, and reduced potential liabilities and harms associated with police misconduct. We are proud of our accomplishments in 2024 and remain committed to our goals for 2025, which include expanding our staff, enhancing community engagement, and continuing our vital work of delivering independent, transparent, and fair police oversight. Your support for this budget request is crucial to ensuring the continued success and impact of the CPRB and promoting justice and accountability within our community. Thank you for your consideration and support, and we'll turn to you for questions.
Thank you for your presentation this evening. I know you stayed after the debt report as well, so appreciate all of your time this evening beyond the typical schedule. I do want to start by just thanking you for the hard work you do for our city, uniquely volunteer-based work that is much needed. So it's, you know, as we go through this process, obviously just know that we appreciate the hard work that you all do on this important board. With that, I'm going to open it up to council members first, and then I have a slew of comments and questions as well. Questions, comments from council members. Councilmember Ballerin.
Thank you, Sheriff. I want to echo sentiments from our chair, and also want to thank you for coming over today. Achievable number. I don't think it's unachievable, the number that I'm looking at. So Gilligan, where are we going to find 120,000?
Well, I think as the council goes through and the finance committee goes through its deliberations of the budget, we'll have to, you know, view all changes to the budget, you know, comprehensively and, you know, identify where there might be the most effective reallocation of resources from places that the council believes we've over-allocated.
I love you, man. I do. And I don't know why you guys keep putting, and I know it's not you. I know it's not you, but, you know, I feel like every year we're trying to find this extra 120,000. And I know last year, a lot of kudos to our chair and you for making it happen. You know, so I appreciate all that work that was done. I got a lot of other asks that I'm going to be pushing. I know you probably have an idea of that. So I think we need to increase that fee. You know, that fee, I didn't think we were going to come up with $6 million when we first met. Man, you already made $2 million. You're going to have made, by the way it's looking, by the end of this year, just by what's already active, we're going to make $2 million. I think we should maybe, I'm not sure if that's something we can look at doing, but increase that fee by maybe $500,000 to be able to address some of these issues. I think this 120, I think 125 for a new vacancy study. I think additional money for training for our, our firefighters. I think, look, I am going off script, I know, and maybe that's, because I'm tired right now. But I'm also going to be honest. I mean, I'm also a little frustrated that we're kind of dealing with this every year, trying to find this. And again, I know it's not you. I know it's not you. But it's like...
Well, if I may, and Chair Vivas sort of outlined it as well, that, the city had been previously paying Albany Law about $140,000 a year. Or sorry, $240,000 a year. Presumably about half that was for the executive director. So the other $120,000 of expense has simply no longer going to occur. So when we keep talking about this $120,000 variance, that's kind of the $120,000 of savings that should occur by bringing the CPRB into the city.
Yes, but that doesn't take into consideration the other expenses that they're looking to reinvest those dollars. I mean, there's a reinvestment. You save some money, but you're going to reinvest it in different areas. So, okay, I look forward to that conversation. I guess my question for the CDFP volunteers, where are we in the moving into the city from Albany Law? Where are we in that process? And is that something we're going to be fully completed by the end of the year?
So we are meeting with the city regularly to conduct transition meetings. I hold a monthly public official liaison committee meeting where we get updates on the process. I know that some of the Common Council staff has shadowed some of the Albany Law School staff to better understand our day-to-day operations. From what we have been told, the move, where we're moving, has not been finalized, but they're very close, and there is a place in mind. We're not able to share that as it's hasn't been finalized, but we have been working with Common Council and I believe Administrative Services from the city, Anne Marie Salmon and her staff. We've posted the program director position, and we are also reposting RFP for our advisory consultant positions as well. So we've done everything we can do up to this point, short of making the physical move and getting the confirmation that the lease has been signed and everything has been finalized. But we thank you all for your support in that transition and heeding our warning that this is imminent and we don't have a home with the law school for next year. If I can just respond to the idea of saving $120,000 by moving away from the law school, I hope that you understand through the presentation that there is no savings. The law school, while it provided us with one full-time employee, we had the help of the entire law school to do our work. Chell Miller, who is stepping in to fill in the role that Michelle played previously, has been part of that team, and others have been a part of that team. But that that is not $120,000 in savings. We have to build up internal staff, train them to be able to do what we once had from an entire organization. So that is where we are folding that in. We're no longer contracting it out, but we're trying to build up internal capacity and knowledge to run our organization effectively.
Okay, one follow-up question, then so are we on schedule to have the full move done before the end of the year?
If we have a place to go, yes.
Okay.
I believe so.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, I'm not seeing any other comments or questions from committee members, so I'm just going to go into a few. Just a couple clarification points on the presentation. I just want to make sure. So I'm on page 9 of the presentation. I just want to clarify that the authorized positions provided by the proposed budget is 4. There are 2 investigators listed. So we have 2 investigators, a confidential assistant, and a program director. What's missing based on your presentation is the part-time community engagement specialist.
I'm sorry if that wasn't included. That is our intention, to bring on a part-time community engagement specialist.
Oh, yes, yes. I'm just looking at the second column. Perhaps I'm wrong. 2020. Oh, okay. I think that meant to say 2025, but it's saying that the mayor proposed 3 positions, but I'm just clarifying that there was 4 proposed in this file, but you're still looking for that additional part-time.
Correct.
Okay. And then you, the other thing I'm noting here is that also on slide 9, the employee benefits proposed by the CPRB is $93,016. And then the employee benefits for 4 individuals, not 4.5, in the proposed budget is $131,510. I'm going to defer to our budget director, but is that the mandatory employee benefit for the 4 authorized positions?
Yes, I believe in discussions with the previous director, the CPRB felt that the pension expense associated with their employees would not be in their budget. So that is that differential between what the mayor has proposed and their request.
And can we speak to that a little bit? What's the variance that we have going on here? One versus, one thinks we should have pension, one thinks we should not have pension.
Well, you know, if we're going to capture the full cost and compare it to another unit of the city, I think we should capture all of the costs with full transparency regarding the board support staff. You know, some departments in the city do have pension in their budget, others do not. But, you know, for this, because we have had so much focus on a particular number and ratio, I think capturing the full cost is important.
If I may, Chair, our understanding is that the inclusion of the pension in our budget was akin to that, the pension that's included in the police and fire budget, which is a different pension than our staff would be entitled to. We didn't think that was appropriate for our staff to pay into the pension system when it was on our understanding that other boards and other city staff that are just accessing the regular, what I believe is the local or New York State retirement system, don't have that access to that enhanced pension, and that's where our difference is, removing that from our budget line.
Budget Director, can you clarify that point? So is the $41,325 the enhanced pension?
No, that would be the ERS pension for general employees. Obviously, police and fire have a separate pension plan, but this is not what the employees are paying. This is what the city is paying to fund these employees' pension. I mean, other ERS employees, including in the budget for various departments, including water, ACDA, youth and workforce, all have pension expenses budgeted directly in their organizational units, not just police and fire.
And just another distinction for us, I don't know if all those other boards or departments bring in any sort of fees or anything. We do not. We're not charging for anything we do. the board members themselves are volunteers, and we are already dealing with a very limited budget, and don't think that that budget line, us paying for pension, is in line with those larger organizations, or, I'm sorry, boards or departments within the city that have more resources, might be bringing in fees. It doesn't work for the very limited resources that we have, that we're trying to expend, you know, in a responsible fashion and do the most what we can with very little.
Okay. I just want to clarify one point there, just to make it, make sure everyone's on the same page. So the portion of the pension, 41,325, from what I'm hearing, we have two kind of opposing viewpoints in a way, but is the mandatory payment that we do to give these full-time employees pension benefits. So just two things there. It's not the employees paying for that pension, and it's not the enhanced police and fire pension, but it's mandatory that we provide that to the full-time staff that we're now bringing on. Okay. Okay, so if we were to add a part-time community engagement specialist, then that line number is going to go up as well. Now, with part-time, help me, is it optional to go in? I think so, right? Because we're part-time, and some of that was optional.
Well, pretty much everyone's mandatory now if you work over a certain hours a week, or no, if you're not temporary. So seasonals can decline, but everybody else has to do it. But so
Okay.
the pension rate for this year's, I'll have to go look. It's approximately 15% of wages.
Okay, so we're adding in additional, potentially, we're talking about adding in additional part-time resource plus additional pension, additional employee benefits cost. Okay.
And I fully think that everyone should have health insurance. I just want to preface it with that, but just so we know what numbers we're working with. Do our part-time employees usually get health insurance as well?
It depends how many hours they work. If they work over 20, they are eligible.
Okay. Okay, and then another point in the presentation was made. I just want to make sure I'm understanding. So it was brought up that the administration gave 0.99% of the police budget. Can you walk me through how that figure was calculated for this proposed budget? I think I heard that. Maybe I misunderstood.
That is what we put in our budget. You're asking for budget director to walk you through, or for?
Because the way I'm interpreting, you know, the mandated 1%, which is not what we typically, that's not necessarily the council stance, right, but as the administration stance. If you go to the police budget on page 46 of the budget, 44. The total police budget is $64,847,410. I believe, so 1% of that would be $648,474. And it does look like instead what was provided in the proposal is $683,010. And I guess I want confirmation more so from our budget director. If I subtract the 804 and the $120,000 of savings that you're talking about, I'm getting to that 684, which is very close to what was proposed in this budget. So I just want to understand the logic that was built into the proposal that's in the book.
Yes, correct. So
That's what
obviously
was used.
684 plus 120 is 804.
So that's how we ended up here, is we subtracted 120 from the administration stance that we're getting $120,000 in savings from transitioning into the city.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. There's more I have here. You know. Okay, so I think the difference then is, when we're talking about 120,000, we know that we're gonna get we know that the request is for a part-time community engagement specialist. I'm gonna estimate that part-time salary to be okay, perfect, 21,000. Plus benefits, you said it's probably 15%, right?
Yeah, plus payroll taxes, so 15 plus about 8, so you're looking at, what is that, 23%, so so somewhere between 25 and 30,000 total.
Okay, so I'm gonna round up and say 5,000. So we're talking 21,000 for a position plus 5,000, so we're at 26. Subtracting 26 from, let me see. Yeah, 120, 26. So 94,000, I think, is your difference that you're looking for in contracted services. Can you just clarify what the additional funds outside of this part-time position, which we just calculated for 26,000, would that 94,000 request be for contracted services?
Yes, like folded into the proposal is the training of our staff, the technology needs that we need. Like I said, we no longer have the law school, so we would still need, while we're onboarding investigators, mediators, all those things, we would need someone to train them, and we will also need an entity to continue our functioning while those people are being onboarded. So we foresee contracted services continuing with our contract investigators, with our advisory consultants, who will play probably a large role in what we continue to do, as we'll no longer have the law school or other support. It may not have staff as of day one of our move.
Okay, and okay, and maybe,
And if I may, I think that's precisely the point, that the salaries included for these 4 individuals are annualized. And I think that this won't materialize on January 1st.
correct. I just want to be able to understand the request that's in front of the council for deliberation. So,
Can I just ask a point of clarification?
1 second. I just want to see. So your case management system was 31,000 annually.
Correct.
On the budget, on the budget, currently we have, I would say the closest thing is your equipment, and it's furniture for 10, office equipment for 10,000 that is, and computer supplies for 6. So, and that gets us to a total of 26. Of those, I assume you need your furniture and your fixtures, right? And your office equipment, are those your computers? Or what is the office equipment?
We do have computers currently. As we bring on more staff, we would need more office equipment, just those things that we don't currently have, that the law school maintains, that we would need to get, that aren't provided by the city currently.
Okay, so I think the case management system is missing here, unless it's part of the 6,000 of computer supplies.
Case management should be 31,000, and it should be there on its own. The only our case management system is a contract that goes up by the cost of licenses. Oh, I'm sorry. Chell has, it is in contracted services, so that 31,000 is built into that line.
Thank you. Okay, so that's already in there, 31,000.
And it doesn't increase unless we add additional licenses, so we don't think that we would need any more licenses than we currently have.
Okay, thank you for that point. All right, point of clarification, Councilmember Keegan?
I guess there's a couple things I have questions about. So when your existing equipment was purchased, it was purchased via the law school and the grant. Do we have an understanding of what is coming with you and what is not?
Yeah, all of our laptops that we currently have are coming with
The
us.
law school does not consider that to be their property.
No, it was purchased through our budget.
And then I think the other piece that I'm getting a little confused about, because it doesn't, the way that your budget is proposed doesn't really follow the way that we structured your budget in our budget book, because we structured 26,000 for training and conferences within the existing budget, and then 165,000 for contracted services. I'm assuming 31,000 of that is the case management system. 75,000 of that would be your legal fees, which would also be constituted as contracted services. So that brings you up to roughly 106,000. So you have 60 or 59,000 left for various other contractual expenses. Do we know what was anticipated to be in the remainder of those contractual expenses, either you or Gideon?
Well, what we envisioned in what we shared in our presentation is what I was just sharing with the chair, continued reliance to a certain extent on our contracted investigators and our consultants who would be providing help with our day-to-day operations, and including training and onboarding staff, our program director, our investigators, to make sure we maintain the same level of, what we do to make sure that there's no drop in services or work once we switch from our contracted investigators to our in-house staff investigators and staff all around.
But
They
that
also-
would,
Okay.
that would typically be pulled from the salary totals that you allocated for your full-time staff, because unless those people are starting on January 1st, what we're predicting those expenditures to be for those full-time staff, as well as their employee benefit expenses, would shift and essentially be surplus that can be E&A'd to cover those contracted expenses until those people are hired on, if that makes any sense. And then, are you anticipating beyond the 26,000 in training and conferences to need additional expenditures, like as the training and conferences expenses, what it's going to cost to send folks to NACOL and support the board, and you need additional training expenses to onboard your staff? And then from there, is the training separate and distinct from the onboarding that admin services would be providing?
Yes, I think I have a handle on all the questions that you asked, but yes, it would be additional to that 26,000, part of which would be our board members' annual NACOL, whether it's in person or virtual training, but we have training throughout the year from our consultants. They train us on a wide range of things when it comes to case review. They would also not just be training our board members, they would be training the staff, which would include an increased training in onboarding to understand how Albany operates, to make sure, like I said, our investigators are upholding the standard that we hold to. So this year will be a lot in terms of pulling from the staff lines and the salary amounts and benefits amounts to move that towards the contracted services amount. Likely that might happen, but we don't know when we will hire. So like I said, we do have the program director job posting out currently, and hopefully that person can be onboarded and ready to work as of January 1, but we don't know. So if we are fully staffed shortly into the year, we would still need to provide that training and support for our team, but additionally we have to build a budget that supports us in any variation throughout the year to make sure we continue to keep providing these very essential services. Dr. B, I'm sorry, I don't know. if you
I think
wanted to-
those are all my questions for now.
I want to go on that. So do you have the estimated budget figure for just training? So all things encompassing, everything you were just mentioning, what is that necessity for 2025?
For the board, you're asking?
All training, so NACL, your external conferences, training your board.
I don't have that number parsed out off the top of my head, but I'd be happy to calculate that and send it back to you all.
Okay.
But our training is all-encompassing all year round. As things come up, we might ask our consultants to provide a particular training, so it would be hard to put our finger on it.
Okay, and an estimate would be good, because right now what's in your book, what's in the budget book by the administration is 26,000. And it sounds like that's not enough to fill the needs of all things training. So if there's, from my perspective, I'm looking at the line items in the proposed budget by the administration and looking at the lines and seeing if those amounts are sufficient for the needs. And I think that's an area where we need to increase your figure. So whenever you can provide that would be great. Councilmember Farrell has a question.
So where in, and I completely agree with the chair on knowing what those different numbers are, because it's just a helpful thing for us. But I'm assuming that you had that training piece worked into your proposed budget. Where is it?
It would be through the contracted services. So like I said, that is something we mostly rely on our currently engaged consultants to provide for us. There's also some trainings throughout the year that NACL provides virtually that our board members can sign up for. So it's a lot of different ways that we get training.
And then just out of curiosity, there is, and this might be a Gideon question, because it's in the budget book, there's $165,000 for contracted services. What are those for?
You know, those are expensive for the board and the, support staff for whatever it is they need. Obviously, we have some of those software licenses that are required, as well as any sort of outside contracted services and experts that they need throughout the year. I mean, the goal is obviously to hire 2 investigators to reduce, the rather high hourly rate of outside contractors. It is a difficult question to answer exactly when people are going to be hired versus not, and, what is the transition time to making all that happen. But obviously I will say that what has been included in the budget is sufficient, and, we can have a discussion regarding, other way, but.
Yeah, I not necessarily to get into it, I was just curious I was sure there was a plan for that amount, I just wasn't sure exactly what it was. So that was it. Thank you.
Okay. I think we're in a better place now, because we found the addendum with your budget compared to the city's budget, so it's much more clear here. So I just want to talk through it. So again, I'm just going to go down the line, right? So you had personnel services landing at $348,000. What's in the book is $295,000. You had equipment at $39,000. We are currently at $26,000, difference of $13,000. You had contractual expenditures at a total of $323,985. We are currently at $230,500. And then the employee benefits, you had, this is the one variance, you had it lower. We have it higher at $131,510 currently, with the understanding that with the additional part-time position, that would go up about $5,000 as well. Okay.
If I can just add one thing, Dr. Harden took you through the caseload that we have currently, and I believe for 2024, we investigated 1 complaint independently. When I say, that we've come before this board before to talk about what fully funding our board looks like, and it's more than $804,000, we are not able to completely fulfill our mandate of what we're asked to do. And independent investigations is something that we know that the community is asking for us, not to just continue to review or monitor what OPS is doing. I believe, and I think you can see when we go through our case review in our meetings, that we do a very thorough job and we hold ourselves to a high standard. That's where the continued training comes from, the support for our staff and everything, but also being clear about what the people have asked for and what they're getting. We are very transparent about that we are not completely living up to our mandate. So this number, this 804,000, that the city is currently deducting $120,000 from saying that we can save money. What we do in overseeing police functions from the community standards and also for the officers that go out and put their lives on the line every day, it is very important that we are operating a professional, effective, efficient board, because what we're dealing with is very important. So looking at this as like the law school is going, so we're going to take $120,000 away, we are at a point where we're saying we can sustain what we're doing, which is not what we've been fully asked to do at this number. So we will, as we have in the past, always be looking for more. And so Gideon, when you talk about preparing these numbers and preparing the book, but we haven't had a conversation about it and not understanding fully what we do, it's very important that the mayor, the administration understand the very important work and the lives, the livelihoods that are on the line when we're making determination. You do not want a board that is not professional, equipped, trained, and fully funded and resourced to do this work. It can be very detrimental, and we want the officers and our community to trust in what we do, so we take it very seriously. So I just wanted to end with that, because this work is different. It's very akin to what OPS does, and I don't think OPS is operating with $804,000. So we're coming because we understand the position that the city is in. We don't just have money growing on trees. COVID funding is gone. We get that. So we can sustain and we can do what we are asked to do at this level, but it's only going to increase. It is only going to be more. There's going to be more cases that we need to and want to investigate independently and do all the other things that you all ask and our city asks for. So I want us to understand we're not fully living up to the mandate of local law J. And that is something that I know our board members lose sleep about at night. We want to do more.
Well said. Very well said. Thank you for that. It's a nice way to wrap it up. I do want to say two quick things, though, because I failed to do so. Congratulations on your presentation at NACOL. That's huge. Very proud of you. And secondly, let's find some federal funding to support this initiative. I mean, this is something that all cities need and require, and I feel like they're, whatever advocacy we can do, although we're a small fish in a large pond, we should look to do, because we should have funding for this type of work. Councilmember Ballerin.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. So what I did was I took the 15% and I added that to so I times that by the 348, and it brings us to an additional $52,200. And then, if I'm correctly hearing, someone that's part-time is eligible for health insurance, correct? Someone that works 20 hours is eligible for health insurance?
I don't know this individual's schedule. So.
Okay. Are you guys looking to bring someone in that does 20 hours?
I'm sorry?
Are you looking to bring someone that does 20 hours?
Yes, at least 20 hours.
Okay, so we've got to add that $17,000, because if someone's eligible for it, we got to assume they're going to take it. And then we also got to add another $1,606 towards the FICO, because even if it's part-time, we still have to pay FICO for them. So that brings us to a total of an additional $70,806 from the original ask of 804. So really, to fully fund what you're asking, it would be basically 875,000. So, no, the 804 does not include the pension. It doesn't.
No, it does. Look down below. Employee benefits.
Doesn't include pension.
They took out the
We,
pension.
I think we just had a lower pension number.
I see.
It doesn't
And the
include,
other thing, though, to note, Councilmember Ballerin, is the positions at an individual level, I think, are lower than what's proposed in the total salary of 290. So like, for example, the salaries that they're proposing for the roles, we have lower salaries in our book currently for the 4 positions.
I would just note that the salaries that we have in our book are comparable to the investigator salaries for New York State. That's where we came up with those numbers.
The investigators for New York City, just to share, it's a completely different program where they're getting investigators out of law school and paying about 30,000.
That's not what I said.
I'm sorry?
That's not what I said.
Okay.
I said the salary totals that we came up with are based upon the civil service title for investigator
Oh, I thought you said
for New York State.
Sorry.
So this would be, the going rate that we proposed would be what people are accepting for investigator positions with various state agencies that have a law enforcement component. So sworn officers that are working in State Liquor Authority, Department of State, OMIG, where we came with that spread from is from that civil service title.
so, thank you. So my point was gonna be that, once we put in these numbers, which we have to, I mean, we have to assume, one, we have to pay people pensions. We've got to put in those numbers. We've got to pay people pensions. It's part of their benefits. If someone's eligible for health insurance, we've got to give them health insurance. You know, so we've got to put in those numbers. So that's an additional almost $71,000. So I think that the 804 is still a solid number because, you know, the conversation that we're having is that we're not going to be hiring people right away. So the fact that we're not going to hire people right away means it's going to, that additional $70,000 that is we would have to budget, we don't have to put that in right away. We can do the 804 and not have the concerns of the additional 80 because we're not going to have people on day one. So, you know, so I think we can still make this work, you know, but I do think the real number that we're looking at for next year, once we're fully funded, once we're fully staffed, is closer to 874, with salaries going up as they normally do. So I think that's important for the council to absorb, that this year it's not going to be that full number, that I think the 804 will be able to get us through because we're not going to be starting people right away. But if we're going to bring it to a lower number, then it's going to make it even harder because the real number is much higher. You know, we have to pay those benefits. So I think it's something we need to continue to talk with the board. You know, if, you know, and have some tough conversations. If we can't find all of the money, you know, on what we can start to trim to make the numbers work. But I think it's important for us to honestly talk about the fact that it's really more like an 874, 875 number versus an 804 or a, what number, 683. Once you look at for pension and for benefits.
Did you want to jump in?
Yes, I
Yes.
just wanted to make sure that Councilmember Ballerin was finished. Thank you. I would just be remiss because this may be the last time I'm probably coming before you. I'll be done at the end of this year after 9 years. And seeing the evolution of the board, especially where we've come through local law J, because of this body, along with community, and this body, I mean, you all as Common Council ensuring that local law J was voted and we really tried to see that through. What I'd just like to leave and try to impress upon you as you think about this budget and going forward is that when we got local law J passed and we got those contractual services, they were critical to professionalizing us as a board to see that mandate through. So that same shift is still going to be needed here when you think about contracted services, training, et cetera, is that you're going to have a new people coming in, some who will have training, like Nairobi. Everybody's not going to be Nairobi and Kevin and have that lawyer lens, right? And even when you do have a certain type of lens, anybody coming into any type of position is going to need to be trained and be able to train going forward. So we'll continue to need a little bit more to make the change sustainable and really happen. So I know that the numbers and the budget is your area, but as a member who took this really seriously and continues to take it seriously and will be present, policies, practices, and procedures can't happen and be sustainable without the appropriate funding needed for real civilian oversight. Albany's currently looked at and leading right now in a number of ways, which we heard and got a lot of feedback, and thank you for acknowledging us being at NACO, because Albany has never been there. So I just want to thank you for those of you who still might be here who allowed me this opportunity, and thank you for advocating for the board's budget to be increased. Thank you.
And thank you for your service. 9 years is a long time to be doing this work. I'm going to put something out there, and then I'll go to Councilmember Keegan. So to get to the 804, what I'm seeing, might be a different viewpoint than what you just said, Councilmember Ballerin. It's the part-time community specialist at $21,000 plus $5,000 in additional benefits estimate. That's $26,000. Then looking at their budget, they requested $32,000 in training versus $26,000. A difference of $6,000. That gets us to 32 total. The 26 for the part-time resource plus 6 for additional training. You also requested $39,000 for equipment. In the budget, we have $26,000, a difference of $13,000. You add that to the 32 I just mentioned, that's $45,000. The difference of $75,000 to get us to the 804 would go to contracted services. That's one option to get us to that 804 figure as we had in prior year. Councilmember Keegan.
I just, for all involved, just wanted to also note one somewhat substantial difference in the staffing costs between the mayor's proposed budget and the CPRB's proposed budget. The CPRB is proposing to have a senior investigator, and the mayor's proposed budget has 2 investigators that are at sort of an equivalent title. However, the salary grade spread as it would translate to the civil service title series that we would likely grab for those positions would be an investigator 2 title series, which is is a supervisory title series. So the 2 positions that are in that 62,350 to 89,230 range pretty closely mirror the grade 18 investigator 2 title for New York State under civil service. And so that is also one difference between their salary totals and our salary totals, which to me, if you were to have a supervising investigator title, you'd be looking at bringing somebody in at a lower grade, which would be the investigator 1 series. I'm not sure you'd attract a grade 14 person with the appropriate qualifications at that range. And it would not make sense to me to bring in 2 supervisory people to supervise themselves. So I just wanted to note that one difference in the personnel services.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions from committee members? Okay. Oh, Councilmember Farrell?
I just wanted to, I haven't really said anything. I just wanted to thank everyone so much for all their work. And thank you so much, Dr. Harding, for your work over the 9 years. You've made a huge difference. And an additional congratulations for presenting at NACOL. And also a huge congratulations to everybody involved for working so hard to get CPRB into the city. I think as we work through the process, it's ultimately going to be a really good thing, but obviously there will be some growing pains and some things that we kind of need to look out for on our end as that shifts. But just wanted to say thanks all around.
Thank you.
Wonderful. I think we've reached the end of our presentation this evening. Thank you both for your time, and thank other members for joining us as well. Okay, we're going to transition to a little bit of bond work. And I do want to take a pulse with this committee. I think we have some commitments this evening, myself included. Where is she posting that? So do we have any interest in going till 8 o'clock? Working through some bonds. Good? Okay. All right. Anyone need a couple minute recess here? We're good to go. Yeah. Yep. Let's take a 2-minute recess and we'll come back and do some bonds. Okay, everyone. We are going to get started only because I definitely have a hard stop at 8, selfishly, but others do as well. So what the goal will be here is maybe any initial overview you'd like to give Gideon, but then I would at least like to have us work through legal and engineering. DGS might be a little ambitious with the amount, but for this evening, 30, 102.24 through ideally 40, 102.24 at minimum. So with that, anything you'd like to start with?
Yeah, so obviously these are the debt authorizations that go along with the 2025 proposed budget. As you all know, all debt at the city level must be approved by a 2/3 supermajority vote of the council. As far as any individual projects, we're not going to talk about them tonight, but the big ones are, of course, the West Hill Community Center is probably the largest project individually on the list in general, and the rest of it is mostly just ongoing capital maintenance, primarily for streets. Some of the larger, as I said, West Hill Community Center projects, and I think that we've done a good job, and everyone throughout the city has done a good job of trying to maximize state and federal resources. I believe we have like $20 million of federal and state resources included in the 2025 capital plan. So that really helps out the city to have to bond less, and including $10 million for the SWIMS program that was awarded to the state or awarded to the city by the state for the Lincoln Park pool. So I guess starting at the top of the list, this is the debt associated with the last payment of a large structured settlement that was agreed to maybe 3 or 4 years ago by the city for a wrongful imprisonment case. I guess of any further, no?
Yeah, so this is ordinance 30-102-24, the only one that we have for law. Committee, any questions on this one?
No. Make a motion.
Yeah, let's do it by let's do it by department. I have a motion from Councilmember Farrell.
I move that we move ordinance 30-102-24 through the committee with a positive recommendation.
Do I have a second? Second. All those in favor? Aye. Aye. Ordinance 30-102-24 moves out of committee with a positive recommendation.
31-102-24 is the design costs associated with reconfiguring the Washington Park traffic flow. This project was spearheaded by traffic engineering and engineering. As you can see, the total project cost for the design is $762,000, with only $494,000 coming from city resources. So, we received a consolidated funding application award for the differential on the design here for this project.
To confirm, is this related to the, I'll say decommissioning, but the decommissioning of a street to not have the traffic, or not have the cars access, and therefore you're going to change the...
Correct, to not allow that through pass and to, change the traffic flow through Washington Park.
Councilmember Keegan? Okay. Motion, Councilmember Keegan, go ahead.
I make a motion to move ordinance 31-102-24 out of committee with a positive recommendation.
Do I have a second? Second. All right. And all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Ordinance 31-102-24 moves out of committee with a positive recommendation.
The following 32-104-24 is a authorization for $1 million of bonds to continue the city's traffic calming, quote-unquote, speed hump program citywide. We've been funding this at approximately $1 million a year each year. I believe that traffic engineering will probably be looking for some of the council members' input regarding some of the locations. So this is the debt to support that project.
Okay. I just want to note that I do find this, a lot of things we do in the city obviously are very impactful, but I do find this to be a newer addition that constituents really do appreciate and see increasingly enhance safety when these are put into certain areas. So I'm happy to see the program still continuing forward, and definitely in support of this. Any other comments, questions from committee members? Okay, do I have a motion? Councilmember Keegan?
I move that ordinance 32-102-24 be moved out of committee with a positive recommendation.
Is there a second? Second from Councilmember Ballerin. All those in favor? Aye. Ordinance 32-102-24 moves out of committee with a positive recommendation.
Next item, 33-102-24, the authorization of $330,000 of debt for the engineering department for maintenance equipment. I believe this is like a bucket truck for traffic engineering to get up to the lights, and I don't have my budget book in front of me what the other item is, but some sort of, I believe it was a rack truck or so to move equipment around the city that traffic engineering and engineering need from time to time.
Any questions, comments? Okay, anyone want to make a motion? Councilmember Farrell?
I move that ordinance 33-102-24 move through the committee with a positive recommendation.
Is there a second? Second from Councilmember Keegan. All those in favor? Aye. Ordinance 33-102-24 moves out of committee with a positive recommendation.
Next item, 34-102-24, the authorization of debt of $150,000 to pay for traffic engineering studies. I'm not sure that the department has anything particular in mind with this appropriation, just sort of the ongoing appropriation each year. These studies do tend to come up from time to time, and we also need, we continue the Vision Zero project with the Regional Transportation, or the Regional Transportation Planning Council and other entities. So, this goes towards those types of activities.
Councilmember Ballerin.
Thank you, Chair. I think this is money well spent, and I hope we look at doing a traffic study at Partridge and Kent Street. Just put it out there.
Okay, no further questions. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to move forward with ordinance 34-102-24 with a positive recommendation.
Do I have a second? Second, Councilmember Keegan. All those in favor? Aye. Ordinance 34-102-24 moves out of committee with a positive recommendation.
Next item is 35-102-24, the authorization of $300,000 in debt for the purpose of roadway striping throughout the city. I recall the other night there was considerable discussions with Chief Engineer Trudeau regarding possible new traffic striping locations. Sometimes it is difficult in this project, and as was mentioned, to find vendors who want to do striping alone, but we did just agree to a contract for an on-call type service, so I think we'll be able to do more striping and isolation as we move into later this year and 2025.
That's great to hear. Councilmember Keegan. Oh, Councilmember Keegan for a motion. If no other questions, comments, go ahead.
I move ordinance 35-102-24 to move out of committee with a positive recommendation.
Is there a second? Second by Councilmember Farrell. All those in favor? Aye. Ordinance 35-102-24 moves out of committee with a positive recommendation.
Next item is 36-102-24, the authorization of $1.1 million of debt for traffic signal improvements citywide. This particular money is earmarked for proposed locations of Madison and Dove, Central and Everett, Northern and Pennsylvania Avenue.
Councilmember Ballerin.
I'd like to move forward with a positive recommendation that we move ordinance 36-102-204 out of committee with a positive recommendation.
Motion on the floor. Is there a second? Second, Councilmember Keegan. All those in favor? Aye. Ordinance 36-102-24 moves out of committee with a positive recommendation.
Next item, 37-102-24, the authorization of $180,000 of debt for the purchase of a traffic sign printer. Again, last week there was some discussions about some new signs or broken signs, whatever the case may be. You know, this will allow traffic engineering to produce their own signs in-house and not require them to go out and purchase them from a contractor.
Don't we currently have that? I believe we're already printing our houses, our street signs in-house. We have a sign guy. And actually, one of the questions that I had for the department is the capacity to add staffing. And this is really more for the budget bill, not for this year. I'm not asking you to find me money for another sign guy, but in terms of building out the capacity of the department, but I had thought part of this was that they were going to need more equipment to be able to actually be ready for the speed limit signs.
I'm pretty well, I'll have to check with engineering. I'm not sure this is really more of a design ongoing. I'll check on the status of where the acquisition of the 25-mile-an-hour signs are.
Because right now we have like a sign guy that I think does all the printing and then actually has to go out in the field and do the signs. So in terms of that department being able to keep up with workload, that's one of the staffing increases that I was hoping to sort of figure out in the budget bill. Budget memo.
Councilmember Farrell.
I will say, because of the expected increase in signage, and I do think Councilmember Hoey is correct in terms of, you know, continuing to kind of update the signs. I would love another sign guy, because I think we need it, to your point, but also it's fun to say sign guy. But I personally am very comfortable voting this through committee, because even though I'm very confident that we do print our signs in-house, it wouldn't surprise, I don't remember ever bonding for one, so I don't know how old that printer is. And it might also be a capacity issue with actually needing the ability to print more signs or whatever it is, however they're done. It wouldn't surprise me if they needed more of that to keep up with the demand with all of the new signs that we need. So I'm very happy to make a motion if my colleagues are
Is everyone in favor?
voting.
Okay. All right. So Councilmember Farrell.
I move that we move ordinance 37-102-24 through the committee with a positive recommendation.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Second from Councilmember Keegan. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Ordinance 37-102-24 moves out of committee with a positive recommendation. Kenny, if you can just get that information for us, that would be helpful. But agree on the point that we probably need more printing with everything we have coming our way. Okay. Next ordinance.
Next item is 38-102-24. I think the note here is a little off. I believe this is for the electric vehicle infrastructure, moving from the $500,000 authorization last year, which was authorized for design, and amending that to get to the actual implementation of some electric infrastructure, thereby amending the bond and increasing the PPU from 5 years to 15.
So we need to amend this, you're saying?
Just the note there in the short title, I think it says traffic engineering, traffic signals. I believe that's EV infrastructure. Everything else is correct. And I'm sure the actual legislation is correct.
Let me just check that. Okay. Infrastructure. Yes, confirming the language refers to EV infrastructure. Okay. Councilmember Keegan.
I was just raising my hand to make a motion.
Yep.
I move to discharge ordinance 38-102-24 out of committee as amended with the language change to EV infrastructure with a positive recommendation. believe that's how we have to say it, correct?
Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Councilmember Ballerin. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Ordinance 38-102-24 as amended moves out of committee with a positive recommendation.
Next item, 39-102-24, the authorization of $650,000 of debt to pay for the cost of streetlights capital improvements. This is just the ongoing capital maintenance since the city purchased the system. You know, we have seen reducing expenditures over the past 2 or 3 years. Our utilities are way down, you know, paying for the lights. We've switched a lot of things to LED. Also, we're eligible for lower rates than the previous owner that we were there, then passing the rate through to us. So I think we're in a good place with the streetlights, and you know, we're kind of getting down into that more basic maintenance mode here going forward after considerable capital expense for the past maybe 3-4 years.
Councilmember Ballerin.
So if this is our maintenance expense, shouldn't this be part of our operating budget?
Well, when I say maintenance, there's varying degrees of maintenance as far as repairs versus capital maintenance. I mean, you know, this isn't paying for, you know, fixing a wire. This is replacing an entire street light, which is, you know, tens of thousands of dollars for a single pole and street light, yes. There's additional appropriations in the operating budget for those smaller repair type expenses.
So I remember when we first did this, that we were going to get a 10-year warranty, if I'm correct. So shouldn't they all still be under warranty?
I'll have to look if these are, maybe I used the word replacement ineffectively, but we do receive requests for new streetlights and upgraded streetlights fairly regularly.
Okay, thank you.
Would you like to hold on this, Councilmember Ballerin, until we get further information?
I mean, we're going to approve a lot of bonds, so we can take a look at, you know, wherever we can save a little bit. I'd say let's do it if we can.
Yeah. So we're going to hold on 39-102-24 until we get further information there. Let's move to our final one this evening. Oh, that was our final one this evening. Am I reading that right?
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, and we are right at 8, so I think we did a splendid job. With that, we have concluded our activities for this evening. We are meeting again tomorrow to continue to go through bonds and to also discuss our budget intent memo and any proposed changes to the budget. We will be noticing that our budget vote will be changed from November 4th to November 18th to allow us ample time to complete the budget intent memo. And again, we have a public hearing on Monday the 4th, our final one at 7 o'clock. With that, do I have a motion to adjourn? Do I have a second? Motion from Councilmember Keegan, second from Councilmember Ballerin. All those in favor? Aye. Thank you, everyone, for your time this evening.